I was talking to friends the other day, and I realized suddenly that ever since I quit my job, I've had this story that I've been telling. And the story goes something like, so people would say, "Oh, Adam, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I quit my job and I went off traveling." And, they're like, "Oh, so what are you going to do?" I'm like, "I don't really know." And the story I had was, I'm just having an adventure. I'm just going to see what happens. And if at the end of it, nothing changes and I end up back, doing an IT job in an office, no huge loss. A lot worse things could happen. And suddenly I realized that story was a lie. That actually, that story was something that I'd used to explain what I was doing in a way that I felt other people could understand it. But that actually, I really desperately don't want to get a job. Like, there's just no part of me that wants to go back to that. If I had to, if it was the only way to stop my family from starving, there would be many worse possibilities. But there's no part of me that wants it. So the question is, what the hell do I want? Like, what do I want to step into? And what's been happening slowly for me over the last year and a half is I've been getting to transition the spiritual work I've done, my history as a manager in business and startups, and my interest in sort of reconnecting with our environment into working with people one-on-one where I can, people who are trying to sort of go through that same change in their lives that I sort of stumbled through in mine without really knowing what I was doing. And that's amazing. Like, I don't know how you make a living doing that. I don't know if it's possible to make a living doing that, and I don't actually even know if I want to charge money for doing it, because that doesn't feel very good. And so that idea for me that what's important to me is learning to be present with other human beings, is like to understand that consciously and being able to say that, like, that's new for me in like the last week. Like, that's like actually having those words, that actually what I want to develop and what I want to use are the skills to be alive and present with other people. That feels like, I feel like there's a glimmering of purpose in that, and I don't know where that's going to take me, but I feel like that's going to take me somewhere. Dave Jackie, who's one of the old permaculture teachers in America, tells a story that when he first went on his permaculture course, his 2-week initiation, Bill Mollison spent 3 days talking about everything that was wrong with the world. And Dave Jackie talks about how sort of horrendous and difficult that was. And he's like, when people come to a 2-week residential permaculture design course, nobody's come there because everything's awesome. Like, people have fears, people have insecurities, people are worried about what their relationship with the world and how things might change. And so his response is, the only thing to do is to get that out in the open. And so he puts down a piece of paper and has everybody write down all of the reasons why they've come, all of their fears, all of their concerns. And once they're all down on a bit of paper, the group sits down and goes, okay, so which ones of these are causes and which ones of these are effects, right? And so they get rid of, all of the ones that seem symptomatic. And then they do that again, and then they do that again, and then they do that again. And he says every time that he's done that, in the end, the root cause of everything is separation, right? We're separate from nature. We no longer understand as individuals or as a culture how to live in balance with nature. We're separate from each other. We don't understand how to live in balance with each other. We don't understand how to ask for what we need. We don't understand how to be generous in a broader sense. Since the Western Enlightenment, our culture has been all about the individual, all about rational thought. And the idea of going back into something more tribal and more interdependent is something we don't really know how to do in Western culture anymore. And finally, we're separate from ourselves, right? And that's the domain of all spiritual work, be it meditation or yoga or Christianity or whatever. And so what I see, I do feel that as a culture, we are probably staring into some pretty dark times, and I kind of feel like they're probably coming in my lifetime. But I don't know what that means. But what I do think is that that separation is at the heart of it. And we have to, we as individuals and we as a culture have to learn how to reconnect. And I think that's terrifying. But I also think it's an amazing opportunity, because in that reconnection, we individually and we collectively have the opportunity to become alive again, right? In ways that we don't currently really experience very often. We all have fleeting glimpses of it when we have an amazing experience with someone, or when we're sitting under a tree watching a sunset and we feel something shift in us. But I think there could be a lot more of that in most of our lives. And I suspect it's probably generations of work to really learn how to live like that. But I don't think it's that hard to take meaningful steps in that direction. And I think every step that we take, especially the steps that we take collectively as a culture, have huge effect. What I'm interested in is, what it means to live in community. What does it mean to have collective goals and collective wealth? And so I'm really interested in exploring that, and not because I think we're headed into dark times, though I do, but because I think we can actually build better ways of living, better ways of being human than what is provided for us by the mainstream today. But if we can figure out how to do it together, if we can figure out how to grow our, relearn how to grow our own food, how to make our own materials, if we can figure out how to live simply, but not simply as in destitute, but simply as in actually rediscovering what it means, like, what do people actually need? Like, what do we actually need to be happy? Do we know? It's like, I've had more shit than I need my entire life. What does it actually mean to mostly only have the things that we need in our life, and the things that bring us and the people around us pleasure? So I think we can't, whatever it is we're trying to build, we can't get caught up in the fear and build something to serve that. What we have to do is be aware of what might be coming as best as we can in all of its uncertainty, and be focused on trying to build something that's amazing for the now. If we can really figure out how to learn together, if we can really figure out how to live cheaply, growing our own food, making our own stuff, getting rid of all of the crap we don't need in our lives, whatever that means to each one of us, then we don't have to be a slave to the machine anymore. We don't have to work 40, 50, 60, 80-hour weeks to pay for all that stuff that we don't question whether it serves us or not. And so that's what I'm interested in building, and those are the skills that I'm interested in developing. And really, at a really base level, what I'm interested in understanding and what I'm interested in exploring for myself is, what does it mean to be human? What do I need to be me? And I suspect the answer is not very much. But I don't know which things constitute that not very much. And so that's the journey that I'm really interested in spending the rest of my life discovering.